Hello, Michigan music lovers. This is Scott Baker, musician, music journalist, and producer, welcoming you to the Michigan Music History Podcast, covering all the territories of the Mitten. We cast from around the block of the brand new Michigan Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Bay City, Michigan, in the heart of the Great Lakes Bay region. And I'm joined by Michigan music royalty, sitting to the left and right, Dr. J. Gary Johnson of the Michigan Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and MichiganRockandRollLegends.com website, and Sir Fred Reif, Michigan music author, publisher, manager, and musician. Together they have taught, lectured, traveled, hosted, and have been quoted worldwide on all things Michigan music. Chances are you stood next to them at the record store or shoulder to shoulder at concerts over the years. They are the record crate diggers and the library microfishermen that have dug around for the details, the credits, and the lineage that has been part of the backstory of Michigan music. So grab your favorite beverage, hit the cruise, and take a trip back with us as we open up a can of earworms on Michigan's rich music history.
Welcome to the Michigan Music History Podcast Show, channeling through all styles and eras of Michigan music, from before you were born up through this very minute. And now, your host, Scott Baker.
What is going on out there? We have a super special guest in the house for tonight, rock and roll legend of his own, and the return of Dr. J. We got a lot going on here in Bay City, and we are overwhelmed in our little podcast studio at Studio 163 in Essexville tonight, and we can't wait to spill it onto the microphones. We have Sir Fred back. How you doing, sir?
Doing well. Thank you.
I got to see him over the last couple of weeks, come to my shows I've been playing, back out playing here and there, and Dr. J in the house, back from his little mini vacation. How's things going?
It's going great. Excited to be back here and talking about the Art Scheill recording studio, and of course with Bobby Balderrama of Question Mark and the Mysterians.
Look at that. The announcement of the man, the myth, the legend in the house. How are you doing,
Well, thank
Bobby?
you for I'm doing great. I just want to thank you for having me, Scott. Thank you very much.
Hey, we knew we could hopefully get you on here because it's being the local man, but having you anytime talk with us is always a treat, and being part of our lineage of all of us respecting you as a
thank you.
forefather here. Thank you for coming down. Thank you for spending time with us.
Too.
Yeah. So I'm going to let Dr. J kind of roll the show out for us. Fred and I are going to have a lot of bits and pieces we're going to chime in on, but I'm sure you and Bobby have a lot to talk about. What did you want to start with there, Doctor?
Well, I guess the Art Scheill recording studio, which was located at 405 Raymond Street in Bay City. What a fascinating place this was. Art Scheill, actually, that was his second job. He was very well known in Bay City back in the 40s and 50s and 60s as one of the premier hairstylists. And apparently Art had his customers were of some of the leading socialites of Bay City at the time. But very few people knew that he was also very passionate about music. And he was, I guess you would call him an audiophile. And he developed his own recording studio in his house. It started out in his basement, and then he eventually enclosed a patio at the rear of his house and had a recording studio there. And, it had a glassed-in booth with all his gear, and it's just a fascinating story. And not only did Art record in his studio, but he also bought a very early recorder that was made by the Wilcox Company in Michigan. And this recording device allowed him to go out and record things outside his studio. And one of the businesses that he had, now again, you have to remember this is in the 1950s before video cameras, but he had a business recording weddings. And he would take his portable recorder, and he would only weigh 27 pounds, and set it up so that he could record the vows and the church music and so on. And then for the price of $25, he would record this and press an album. And the couple then would have a long playing album of their...
The acetate?
Yeah, well, it was actually a vinyl album. Oh, yeah. And, they would have that as a souvenir. And we were lucky enough, there was an article that the Bay City Times did about me and the recording studio. And it got to this couple that was living in Florida that had been married in 1958. And they hired Art Scheill to record their wedding. And they played this long playing record every year on their anniversary for 50 years.
Oh, that's incredible.
And then decided that after 50 years, they would donate it to the Historical Museum of Bay County. Oh. But on top of that, they had kept Art Scheill's business card from 1958. And he also, one of the interesting things that this recording device would do is that it could record, and I guess the best way to describe it, it would be almost like a cardboard record that you could put on a turntable and play. And he made these things, and then he would give them out to prospective customers. And you could play this little recording that was maybe like 2 or 3 minutes long that had a little portion of vows, some church music to give people an idea about what their long playing record would sound like after the ceremony.
Incredible.
And the McFadens kept this and also donated this to the Historical Museum of Bay County. And the really interesting thing about this is it's got Art Scheill's voice on it.
One of the rare parts I've ever
The only recording probably of his voice.
Oh, wow.
So anyways, he was doing this, and then he had his own religious radio programs. He was a choir director at several churches in the Bay City area for many years.
When I read that on the site, and for those of you out there that haven't had the chance to read this is a book within itself on Dr. J's Rock and Roll Legends, Michigan Rock and Roll Legends website. I'm going to provide the link for it for all of you to read. But I was going to ask you specifically, have you, I guess I forgot what I was going to say now. I'll have to edit that part out. But what were you just saying about did you get to hear that cardboard?
Oh, sure.
Oh, okay. That was what I was asking.
I've got a recording of it, actually.
Did you get it digitized?
Yes.
That was one of my questions for you tonight.
How did it sound there, Gary?
It sounded good. It was a 78.
Okay.
Again, this was in 1958. It was on 78 speed. So I had a friend of mine. I didn't have a 78 on my record player. My record player only had 33 and 75 on there. So, anyways, he was kind enough to make a copy of it for me. So
this kind of preceded the cereal boxes that came with the floppies.
It's very similar to that.
About that.
Me too.
Yes, it's very similar to those kind of recordings that were on the cereal boxes. But the neat thing was you could mail these, and I was looking all over for a copy. And I think, from what I understand, that one of the things he did in the early 50s was make recordings for families to send to their son or daughter who was in the armed services. And you could mail them this recording with everybody's voice on it. And if you were stationed somewhere where you had a record player, you could play this. But I was unable to, locate anything like that. But just one of the, the many things that he did. It was really an interesting guy. He recorded a lot of band concerts. His business was on the west side, pretty close to T.L. Handy High School. And so he recorded band concerts. He even they had this synchronized swim team at TL Handy High, and he would record music for their routines. And so if they wanted a popular song, one of the things that he would do would be to make extended mixes, like taking two recordings and then link them together to the exact time that they needed to do their routines, sort of like doing the extended dance mixes about 15 years before disco.
He had it way ahead of time.
Yeah, really. And then he started recording these because he didn't charge very much money. It was a very popular place to record. And Fred, we had talked in an earlier episode about polka bands in Bay City, and I had mentioned Gene Guizdala recorded an entire album with Art Scheill, and he had heard about Scheill from some other polka musicians, so obviously other people recorded there as well. And of course, there were the teenage bands, but one of the things when I interviewed Bobby, one of the things that I thought was real interesting was that, of course, Rudy T. Gonzalez, actually produced your session.
He did,
for 96 Tears and Midnight Hour. That, some of the other Conjunto Tejano bands that used to play at the GI Forum in Saginaw, booked by Jose Gonzalez, Lily Gonzalez's husband, actually went to Scheill's studio and recorded there. And I was thinking, when I was originally trying to get the state of Michigan to designate that address as a historical landmark, they wanted proof of, these recordings. Well, we could not find any documentation.
You couldn't tell them that
all the people.
You couldn't tell them that 96 Tears was recorded there?
Well, I mean, it wasn't so much, everybody kind of knew that one, but the other people, lesser known, but yet all those folks that we had mentioned, well, I guess we didn't mention their names. There was Los Fabulosos.
Oh, yeah, Fabulous Four.
Yeah, the Fabulous Four. Bernal,
Pablino Bernal.
Okay. And these, a couple of these musicians were in the Tejano Music Hall of Fame down in Texas and recorded, with Art Scheill in Bay City. But again, there was no documentation. I was in contact with so many people, relatives of Art Scheill, and also the daughter of John Lipinski, who bought the studio from Scheill, I think it was 1969 or 1970. But I think they've been lost for time.
We'll have to send that out there to the podcast world. If you have any way of tracking down any of the documentation from the recordings from Art in Bay City, from anything that was ever recorded there, because when you read the link, you'll find that there's a lot that was done there. Please get in touch with Gary or one of us to the site and let us know, because we have been looking for documentation and we've been looking for anything that has some of the dates back then. I also wonder too, you posted on that site that you never found out what radio stations broadcasted his shows, or have you since then? Or?
No, but I'm guessing it would probably have been
local AM.
Yeah, it would have been AM, right? Yeah. WBCM or whatever the AM designation was back in those days. But yeah, he had two Sunday morning religious shows that he did for many years in Bay City.
Do you ever remember hearing any of that on the radio, Fred?
Nope.
No. You probably weren't. Were you around here at that point? Yeah.
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 Probably not tuned into those Sunday morning religious shows.
That's too early.
Yeah.
So Bobby, how did you hear about the Art Scheill studio?
Well, what we did is Question Mark went to Rudy to Lily Gonzalez, and we proposed this. We had wrote the song, and so she put us in the studio there, and it'd be the first time I was ever in the studio, and I was pretty impressed, with the control panel and all that. And I felt like, wow, this is big time, you know.
Yeah.
And she put us in there, and like Gary said, Rudy Gonzalez was there. He was our producer, and it was just a great time, you know. I think I was like 15 years old at the time.
Wow.
Yeah, and Art Scheill was just a nice guy, you know. I could tell he was a good Christian, you know. He's just a really good person, and it was so easy to work with. It made me feel, you know, comfortable, because I've been in studios out in the East Coast, like New York and all that, and recorded. And sometimes the engineers, they're a little bit, you know, uppity sometimes. You know, you're afraid to ask them questions because they're too busy turning knobs or whatever, you know. And so I kind of stayed away from the engineers out in the East Coast.
That was later on.
Yeah, that was later on after our song made it.
So you had it good right off the bat, and from there you get to experience the bad words we won't say right now. That happened after that.
It just, you see the frustration goes on with them, you know. Oh, we got to do that again. Okay, you know, and you know, those kinds of things. And they kind of get you know, like you spent hours in the recording studio, because we were doing our album out on the East Coast. And when we recorded 96 Tears, all we did was 2 songs. And it took us a while, because Rudy, I think we recorded 96 Tears at least 6-7 times. I can't remember, but he kept saying, no, you got to do it again. And I kept thinking, well, that's good, you know. And then finally we got to the point, and he said, yep, that's it. He was right, you know.
And it was always a full take. It was never pieced together.
Exactly.
Okay. Yep. It was a live shot.
Live shot,
okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Wasn't it a different bass player on the original?
It was, I can't.
Francisco Aguilar, right?
Yeah. Yep. I don't know much about him, you know, but
He was the bass player in Rudy's band, right?
I think he was.
In the Reno Bounce, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was, to follow that up, I was reading also on
I
Dr.
really,
J's page.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was gonna say, I don't remember him a whole lot. You know, it's like I had prostate cancer. You know, and it really did a damage to my memory.
Oh.
You know, when I came out of it, you know, dealing with all that, and so a lot of my history, when I wrote that book, I had to look up things, you know, because I couldn't remember them, you know, and it really hurt my memory. And so some things, you know, but lots of important things I do remember. And after doing research, you know, kind of came back. I just don't remember, you know, I don't remember talking to him, to be honest with you. Right. I was so young, Scott, that I was real shy.
Yeah.
You know, and I just...
New experience.
Yeah, new experience, you know. Even just playing on stage, it was still new to me, you know. I mean, I was, you know, 15 years old, so... And I would get nervous, you know. So, you know, when we went into the studio there, I felt that Art was very... he made me feel comfortable, you know, because I was kind of nervous, you know. And when Rudy kept saying, well, do it again, you know, I kept, you know, in your mind, you think, is it me that's
who's the one?
Yeah, who's the one in the band that's, you know.
And you always think yourself.
Yeah.
Then you try to find out your notes, and then you're trying to pinpoint, and then you're losing your feel.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and we did that song so many times, you know. It gets to the point where, you know, you can't put the whole feel into it after about 6th, 7th time, you know.
Right.
And I don't know if Rudy saw that, you know, but and Frankie, you know, he was only 14.
Really?
And Frankie is really active person. Mm-hmm. And he gets very impatient real easy. And I could see him, he just wanted to get the heck out of there.
Well, that takes me to my question was the sessions that did come out on the Cameo Parkway re-release a few years back, it had sessions from earlier than that. And according to the Dr. J's site, it says you think they were recorded at Frankie's family's rehearsal space, and Question Mark thinks they were recorded in Bay City there at Shields. So you don't have any. Yeah,
the only recordings that we did was Nice Exteriors, and it was Midnight Hour. It wasn't in the midnight hour; it was Midnight Hour, and it was an original.
A different, yeah.
And those are only 2 songs I remember recording there. You know, I don't think
you have a pretty firm memory on that. But
yeah. I don't remember going back.
Well, we did a number of interviews, Bobby, and when I was asking that question, they were definitely early takes of 96 Tears and Midnight Hour. And and the point I was making is, this is the difficulty of trying to piece together everything that Scheill did, because here you and Question Mark, who were involved in the recording of both those, you're not in agreement as to when they were done. And again, we're dealing with going back memory, 50 some years. But there's been a lot of mistakes made in print about the recording of 96 Tears, a lot of errors.
I saw that.
One of my big goals was to get the story straight. And, to give Art Scheill credit for what he did. And again, I think what I think is really significant about those recordings that you did at that studio is when you did the album for Cameo Parkway, Cameo Parkway used the original Scheill recordings of 96 Tears and Midnight Hour and didn't re-record them in their, what was it, Allegro studio in New York City? Was that where you did the album?
I can't remember the studio in New York City, but we did the first album we did in Philadelphia.
Oh, okay.
The first album, it was called 96 Tears album.
Right.
And that was done in Philadelphia.
What studio in Philadelphia? Remember that?
It was... I seem to think that Neil Bogart said it was a Cameo Parkway studio. I don't.
Neil Bogart, who went on to Casablanca Records?
Yeah. He was our producer. He was kind of like the vice president of Cameo Parkway too.
Okay, so but he had a studio lined up for you guys in Philadelphia where you finished that record out.
Yeah, we hung out with him all the time. When we were in New York and Philadelphia area. And
do you have any memories of re-recording 96 Tears at that Philadelphia studio just to see if that was part of the deal?
No, he didn't want to do that because the song had already made it, and and so he wanted to go with that. I'm glad he went with. I think what they did though, if you listen to the radio version, they cut out the very end. Right.
I was going to ask Dr. J about that. Yeah.
Well, just for more play.
More play, yeah.
Yeah, that's why all songs, in the 50s and 60s were under 3 minutes.
Yep.
Because, the radio stations wanted to get as many commercials in as possible. So, by cutting off the final, I guess would have been about 20 seconds, they figured they were going to get more radio play for it.
Yeah, and I didn't know they were going to do it. And then when I heard on the radio, I didn't hear that because Question Mark does it kind of like he goes into a falsetto or a yodeling or something.
Right, a couple cries at the end.
Yeah, 96 Tears, like that. I'm not real good at that part.
Yeah. Well, again, the idea is that, Scheill made recordings that were good enough that Cameo Parkway included them on that album, didn't try to change them. So, it gives you an idea that he knew what he was doing.
And the second biggest single of the year that year, right?
Yes, when they had the year-end, Billboard Awards, Question Mark and the Mysterians, 96 Tears, had the second highest number of weeks on the Billboard Hot 100. The only song that was spent more time on the charts was California Dreaming. And I don't think California Dreaming was a number one song. Well, it just spent a lot of time on the charts, though.
Yeah. Now I remember seeing someplace where who did Sonny and Cher? No,
I Got You, Babe.
It was a song
that would have been 65.
That would have been 65. Okay. There was a song that I don't know if it was Billboard list, but I saw it on there. It was Monday. Who did that?
Well, that was Mamas and the Papas. That was the number one hit.
Yeah.
But it didn't have as many weeks on the chart.
Yep.
And that's what Billboard's Song of the Year was. And the only Michigan artist that ever won the Billboard Song of the Year was Del Shannon with Runaway. But you guys were darn close. You were number 2.
Wow.
And you figured that year they had a single that was on the charts longer than singles by the Beatles, the Supremes, the Rolling Stones, the Beach Boys.
Unreal.
So, pretty significant.
Yeah. Wow. I came right out of Bay City.
Yes, indeed.
When you guys had that record come out, how many, I don't know, obviously, but how long after you recorded and had the single of 96 Tears out did your full length record come out? Did it take 6 months to a year?
I'm not sure what you're saying.
The album.
The full length.
Oh, the album. You mean
After you got done in Philadelphia and everything was done.
I think it took us a little bit of time. They did want to put us in the studio right away, but they wanted us to go to do American Bandstand, and we had to go. We went down to Texas to play down there for a bit. And then we drove up to Dallas, and we met Neil Bogart there. I think he was him and somebody else. And then when we flew out to L.A. to do Dick Clark show, and then and I remember we went on tour for a little bit, and then we were out on the East Coast or something like that, and he had Neil had it set up to when we was going to be out there to put us in the studio, and then we was out there for a bit, doing. I think we were out there almost 2 weeks, something like that. Just every day, getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning till 9 or 10 o'clock at night, just in the studio. Yeah.
So is that when I Need Somebody came out?
Yeah.
Was that right about the same
Yeah,
time?
that's when we recorded
as the album that did then, right?
Yep.
So that would have been the fall of 66.
Yeah.
So you're talking 4 or 5 months later.
Yeah.
Well, it was funny because around here, 96 Tears was a gigantic hit in the summer.
It was. You're right.
But then when it went national, it didn't become number one until the end of October.
And I can tell you, when we went to L.A. to do American Bandstand, and Neil Bogart, he put us into a club. And I think it was the same club that I remember watching Cheech and Chong Up in Smoke. And they're in this club, and I was watching it, and I saw the outside, it looked like some casino type, formaldehyde, big sofas, and steps, and I said, that looks like the place we played at, and I remember that stage, it turned in a circle, you had the equipment set up, and then the other band would be done, and then the other band would have the other equipment set up, and then they'd turn around and be facing the audience, Mm-hmm. And I was watching it, and I go, wow, I remember doing that. And then when we did that show at that place, we got booed.
No shit.
Yeah, big time. There was a band called the Leaves. I don't know if you remember the Leaves. They had
Leaves, yeah.
Yeah, they had
Hey Joe.
Hey Joe. Yeah,
Hey Joe was a big hit.
That was a big hit. Now I heard that was Meat. What was his name? Was Meatballs on Archie Bunker? What was his name?
Rob.
Oh, Meathead?
Yeah, Meathead. Yeah,
Rob Reiner.
Rob Reiner. Yeah, and I heard that he was one of the guys that played in that band. I don't remember him, but. It was so weird because we were on stage, and everybody was just like boo, and and I'm thinking, why are we here, and so when we were done, I watched them play, and they were really good, and I could see why they liked them. Hey Joe sounded great.
Rob Reiner would have been really young at that point.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. I've never heard that Rob Reiner was in the Leaves, but I mean, it could be.
Maybe Carl had part of it.
I read that someplace. I don't know if it was real or not, but
Okay.
I was like, wow, that's cool, But it was exciting to do the show, the TV show, That's what I look forward to.
Wow. So I guess for me, and I've never been able to. It's probably out there, but I've never gotten to ask you when the full length album came out. Okay. Your single was already huge locally. Then it broke nationally over a period of 6 to 8 months.
Yep.
And here you are, huge on the church. When that record came out, did the record spend a long time on the church? The full length 33
for the album. I don't know. We never got any kind of award for it.
I wondered about that because you'd think that it would come hand in hand.
Yeah.
Like, okay, now the record's I can go buy the full length and not just the 45. Even though 45s and singles were the big deal back then, you were just getting into the album world. I just wondered what your thoughts were.
I don't think it made it into the top 100.
No, okay.
It was an album we did 1998 called More Action.
Yeah.
And it got great reviews on...
that was at Bullfrog here? Or did you do that one in New York?
I can...
Was that on Rounder, Bobby?
I can't remember, Gary, but... I just saw that just recently. This guy did an interview. He did a review of the album, and it was called More Action. It was on. No, it wasn't a Rounder. It was. It was a label that did movies.
Okay.
I can't think of the label, but it's kind of a long, kind of a French name or something. I can't remember. But they do a lot of movie tracks. And they're the ones that released it. It was released through a good friend of ours, and then he re-released it.
Chad,
No, that was we did it to Collectibles.
Collectibles Records.
Yeah, that was Collectibles, and we did.
That was the Goldmine. I always seen that in Goldmine magazine.
Yeah, and that one we did it at Chad's studio, and basically we didn't have any new songs. They were just redone, old songs, And 96 Tears went on there too, and we did that over again.
I remember covering you guys and spending days out there with you guys and with Q as he was doing his thing, and he started dressing up when I started coming around more and more. I was like, oh, here we go. And but within a couple of years, though, you guys were back touring New York. And
Yeah, we traveled all over Europe and out West Coast, East Coast. It was just a great time, and it felt like back in the 60s,
That's cool.
Well, you guys got a great review in Rolling Stone magazine.
That's the magazine I was trying to think of.
Yeah, you played this club, Coney Island High.
Yep.
And Lynn and I were in New York at the time, and we wanted to go, but in New York City, I don't think you guys went on till like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
It was late.
Forget that.
Yeah, it was late. I don't think it was that late, but we did play a couple times there, and it was 2 o'clock in the morning. But I think we went on around 12 or something like that.
Yeah.
It was late, and it was packed too. I mean, it was just I can't, I can't even see how the people can handle it,
Well, those 2 albums that you did on Cameo Parkway, the 96 Tears album, and then the follow-up was Action. I mean, those albums really, they still hold up today. And you think about 96 Tears, you had 12 cuts on there, and 11 of them were originals.
Oh, yeah.
Which... I mean, 1966, I think, was the first year that the Rolling Stones put out an album of all original music. And then the Beatles, if I remember correctly, this would have been maybe the end of 65 with Rubber Soul. That was the first album they put out with all original tunes.
That's when everything changed.
So, when Question Mark and Mysterians comes out with this album and 11 of the 12 songs are originals, that's pretty significant.
Yeah, it was a situation where Neil Bogart told us, if you guys got any more originals, And then we said, no. He goes, well, I'm going to put you in the studio and you just start writing. So that's what we did. That's why we were there for 2 weeks. We were actually writing in the studio.
Was that for Action? Or for
that was for the first album.
96.
Yeah,
okay.
and I think we might have had one song. I can't remember that, but I remember he made it plain to us we got to write new songs.
Well, you did a pretty good job.
Well, I appreciate that because see, like me and Frank and Question Mark were the team writers. And I would come up with some chords and stuff, and I would show it to Frank, and Frank was an amazing keyboard player. He could listen to that, and he could just apply his talent to that. And then Question Mark, all he did was just sang to it, So me and Frank were like the music writers, and Question Mark was
the lyricist.
The lyricist, yeah.
Right.
I thought it was a great team, and what upsets me is that it's too bad Neil Bogart and Lily Gonzalez didn't see that, because we could have added more hits. I know we could have.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of hits, what's their name? There's a band that had a hit with your. I'm trying to think of the name.
It was
Smash Mouth. Yeah. And now, what was that song? And what
Can't Get Enough of You, Baby?
Was that on Action or was that on 96 Tears record?
That was on Action.
It's on Action. We didn't write that song. It was something that Neil Bogart came to us, and it's a funny story there. And he wanted us to do it. And I said, all right, we'll do it. But he said, I want you to do it exactly like 96 Tears.
Oh, geez. He wanted to tap into it.
Yeah, even the intro. Dun, dun, dun,
Mm-hmm.
And I told Neil, I said, Neil, I'm a listener. I listen to radio all the time because I try to learn what other people are doing, And I said, one of the worst things you want to do is do a song, your second song coming out or third, that sounds exactly like your big hit. People are really turned off. Mm-hmm. And he told me, he goes, well, Bobby, he goes, if you don't want to do it, I got guitar players in line.
Oh,
you know.
jeez.
And I'm thinking, I thought he was a nice guy, but when he told me that, it was my whole way of thinking of him was not good.
Yeah, you wonder what the deal was, because that song was actually recorded by the Orlons.
Uh-huh.
And you remember them from South Street and the Wah-Wah-Tusi?
I don't remember any other band doing it, but
Well, this was more like a vocal group.
Okay.
They weren't really a band.
Yeah.
And the Four Seasons
that's
did a version of it
exactly
also.
because
But
yep.
your version is better than the other
Well,
two by far.
thank you. Well-
yeah, you guys. I mean, even though it did have that 96 Tears organ part in there, it still was a great cut.
Yeah, and you know, I look at it in the past, you know, and I see Smash came out with it, and when they came out with it, they didn't really sound like 96 Tears. They almost sound like the Doors, you know, but they were doing our song.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that somebody was there saying, why don't we combine the Doors and the Question Mark Mysterians together and do that song, you know? And
Yeah, if he would have probably let Frankie do his own thing on there, it would have sounded a little different, and maybe it would have been a bigger hit.
I
Because
think
it was a good song.
it was a good song, yeah.
Very catchy.
Yeah, I think "Do Something to Me" would have been a big hit.
Oh man, yeah.
But we were—that's the time we were having problems with the company, you know, and Lily.
Well, also Cameo Parkway was going down.
They were going down, yeah.
I think you released that single, and then 4 weeks later, the company was bankrupt. And, and it was
and you know what's that's
Bob
great.
Seger too.
Are you talking about the 96 Tears single, or are you talking about?
No, we're talking about
Cameo Park-
their final single, "Do Something
Oh,
to
Do
Me."
Something to Me,
Really?
yeah.
And
were-
that was the same time Bob Seger had recorded Heavy Music,
Right.
and that was starting to go up the charts. And then all of a sudden, you couldn't find a record.
Were
it just
the
the same
Rationals on there too?
The Rash. I think they were, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if they were burned as bad as Question Mark and the Mysterians and Bob Seger were. With as far as a single that probably had a lot of hit potential, because Tommy James and the Shondells recorded "Do Something to Me"
And
the
their
next
song,
year.
it went number one.
Well, it was top 40 hit.
Oh,
You know,
jeez.
I thought their recording wasn't good because it was live, you know, and it sounded weak, you know, and it just didn't have the fullness of our version is, you know. And at the time when "Do Something to Me" came out, the studio version, recording in the studio was a lot better than when we did 96 Tears, you know. When we went into do our first album, you know, the studios weren't the best, you know, and then they got into like 16 tracks and all that, and
So your first album went from the original recording to like an 8-track studio. Then,
I think what they had in
then you-
Philadelphia with 8-track, yeah.
then you jumped to 16 by the time you did Action.
I think "Do Something to Me," yeah,
That's
that was,
awesome.
yeah.
You were right in the heart of that growth period. We had a little show that where we talked about that.
Mm.
Like I think one of the first records first 16 tracks ever bought was Frank Zappa bought in California he did Hot Rats on it, and that came out in 69, 70.
Wow.
But it's crazy how you were right in the heart of the growth of that soundstage building.
It just blew me away because you know, I mean, at Art Scheill studio, you know, he didn't have much of a playback kind of a thing. If I remember right, we had to stand by the control room, and it was real small. I think was it his closet or something that he put windows in?
It was about as much room as Art could get in there.
Yeah,
with his equipment.
and he had speakers in there, you know, and so we would stick our ear to the open of the door and listen, and you know, and then when we went to it was Philadelphia, you know, it was a nice studio, I gotta admit, but you know, I noticed as time went on, you know, the what you call it, the technology was moving pretty fast.
Right, and you were right in that heart of it. Wow.
Yeah, it was nice.
That's incredible too. That you, like you said, that single came out and Seeger's single came out at the same time, and the company just was gone within months.
Yeah, I think what happened was they hadn't had a big hit since Chubby Checker, and our song came on, and they hadn't had a hit like 2 or 3 years or something like that. So they were going down already. And so when they offered Lily, you know, their offer, she went with it. And I the way I looked at it now, you know, at the time I couldn't see it, but now I do, is that Neil Bogart, you know, he looked at us after trying to do a couple singles after that, recording companies, they kind of start getting away from you, and I felt that he looked at us as a one-hit wonder.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and he was. I could almost sense that he had other plans that he was doing. Just the way he acted. He wasn't real. When we first met him and we were recording and all that, he was just a real nice guy, And then when he told me that one thing about guitar players, but it just seemed like his whole mentor was, I'll just hang with these guys, and
Milk what you can and move on.
yeah, I kind of felt that.
Well, maybe he knew that, the company was in trouble.
Yeah, I think.
Because when he came to Michigan, well, Fred mentioned, signing the Rationals.
Right.
He signed Bob Seger. Of course, you guys.
Yep.
Terry Knight
Terry Knight and the Pack. Yeah.
Terry Knight.
I ran into those guys out East Coast playing.
And I think Jamie Coe also was signed on his trip to Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
So he did pretty well, but if company is struggling, maybe he was already looking
He was.
elsewhere.
Yeah.
Where can I go next?
Yeah, and I talked to Jimmy Hollywood, and he told me the story that he did talk to Neil Bogart when he was out in California, and I think he went to his house or something. I can't remember the story, but he said that, he did, because he said that he had our gold record there, and he was so proud of it because that was his first gold record he ever had,
Oh, yeah, sure.
And so it made me feel kind of good, as far as our music. I was really impressed with that.
Was there ever any opportunity to, since they had you guys all farmed from Michigan there, to put you guys on a tour together or do any kind of Michigan promotion together, being Rationals or Seeger or you guys are all at the same time, same label? Was there ever anything like that came out of that?
Like I said, we ran into Terry Knight and the Pack. I remember what they did to us, said they would send us to high schools out in the East Coast, like New York, and around New York City, and they would have us play 2 songs. We'd go out there and play 96 Tears and our second song, and then we would get off, And I remember one time we were getting off, and I looked to my right, and I saw Terry Knight, I saw the band there, and I waved at them, and then they waved back, and then when we were done, we had to go play at another school. It was like that.
Throughout the day, you were jumping schools?
Yep.
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah.
What an interesting tour schedule.
I know, it was kind of weird. and it was around that area. And then, but they never did. That was a good thought there, though, Scott, to put the band.
Holy crap.
Us, Bob Seger, Terry Knight. Wow,
talk about a solid Michigan package coming out at that time.
But you guys were on other kinds of packages, right? With other hit makers of the day.
Yeah, we traveled.
Yeah, it was. Well, that's the way it was done still in the 60s. Weren't concerts like we think maybe concerts are, were all these package shows.
That's what they did. I don't know. I think it was Premier Talent that put this together, but it was us, Real McCoy. I mean, not the Real McCoys, the McCoys, and Rick Derringer, and the Seeds. They had Pushing Too Hard. The Outsiders, they had Time Won't Let Me, and Gloria,
Shadows and
Nights.
Okay.
We all traveled in like a Greyhound bus. It wasn't a tour bus.
And you all were together in one bus?
We were all together, so we got to know each other. And after we were done touring, we would hang out. Say we would play in Chicago, and Jimmy, what's his last name? The singer for the Shadows Night, Jimmy. Some, yeah. He come out and watch, and we hang out, and then the guitar player Kelly, me and him became great friends, and he taught me a lot about blues. And when we traveled, I would hang out with him and Rick Derringer, and go up to the room.
Crap.
And Rick Derringer, he came up to me one time. He said we were eating at a restaurant, and we were all sitting around. He comes up and he goes, "Man," he goes, "You got a ES345, right?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "I got one too. His was red, and mine was sunburst."
Right.
And he goes, "I'd like to check it out." And I said, "Yeah, I'll come up to your room if you want me to." I go, "Wow, it's cool." I was excited because, man, that guy could play guitar, man. He's just amazing back then, too. And I was so scared to play in front of him. So I went up to his room, and I brought my guitar up there, and he started jamming, and he plugged it in, and he plugged it into an Echoplex box, and then to an amplifier. I never saw an Echoplex. And he starts playing these chords. He's playing jazz chords, right? And then all of a sudden it comes back around, Echoplex works, and then he started playing lead over it. I said, how you doing that, Rick? I said, you can't play twice. He goes, no, it's this box.
Really?
And he explained it to me, and he says, I love it because I can jam by myself.
Was that the first pedal you saw?
That was the first time I ever saw an Echoplex.
An Echoplex, but I mean, any pedal, or was there pedals that you had used before that?
I never used pedals.
No, you always were straight plugged
Straight in, yeah.
But when you saw that was an eye opener.
That was now because I figured you could play rhythm and then you could go back and and then play lead over it. And it was
story,
like,
man.
It was cool. And Rick Derringer was just a nice guy, And then, well, it's funny because I was working at Bay Music and he played at the.
He played at Zingers.
Yeah.
It was around my birthday back in the 90s.
Yeah. He played at Zingers, and so he was having a problem with one of his amps, and he was a PB authorized guy, where they sponsored him. And so he brought it in, and Eddie Kurt told me, he brought me Rick Derringer's guy. Rick Derringer? I said, what's he doing here? He said, he's playing in Saginaw tonight. I go, wow, that's great. So all of a sudden, behind him, here comes Rick Derringer, and some guys bringing the amp in, right? And so I look at Rick Derringer. I didn't recognize it because we were all grown up now, and we were kids back then, And I'm checking out his amp, and he's telling me what's wrong with it, and I said, I said it sounds like it needs to be cleaned, and the tubes need to be rebiased, I'll do that, And he says, all right. So I did, and we're talking, and I asked him, I said, you probably don't remember me, but I played in a band. It was called Question Mark and Mysterians. He goes, I always wonder what happened to you guys.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Really?
And he said, because we were on tour with them, and then the last gig we did was supposed to be in Canada. And Question Mark, he wasn't used to touring. And it kind of got to him, and he was kind of getting burned out. And he kept telling me, I don't know if I can do anymore. I said, Question Mark, we got about 3 more gigs, and he goes, I'm having a hard time, Bob. He goes, I don't know if I can do it or not. And then so, all of a sudden, I got a phone call from Lily Gonzalez and said, Question Mark doesn't want to finish out the gig in Canada. I said, I know, he seemed like he's burned out or something. And so we didn't do it. And Rick Derringer said, what happened to you guys? You guys didn't do the I think it was in Toronto or something like that. And he said, man, he goes, we went through some shit.
Really?
Yeah. I said, well, what was it? He goes, well, you guys song was hitting right at the time we did that. And they were so looking forward to seeing you guys. And the promoter that hired the tour package, they were kind of like, like,
where's the hit maker?
They were kind of like New York mob style people, and that's what Rick Derringer's telling me. He goes, man, they were threatening our lives and everything.
He told you that in Saginaw 30 some odd years later after that.
And I said, really? And he goes, yeah. He finally got over it, and the crowd loved our band, and the Outsiders. And I said, well, that's great. And I said, I'd like to come out and see you guys play, He goes, I'll put you on the guest list, And I said, all right. So I went out and watched him, and it was just great to see him again,
man. How cool that you guys get to reconnect. I wondered if you were at that show, and after you told me that story, because I'm like, I remember seeing him at that. It was like in January of 97 or something, because right before my birthday, that week of my birthday, and I went backstage and hung with him and got some autographs afterwards, and I'll never forget that night, because like, what the heck's Rick Derringer doing at Zingers?
And you saw him play, right?
Yeah, I was right in front of him.
Man, he was amazing. Yeah.
I sat in that front row going, whoa.
I just had my eyes right on his frets.
Oh, man. How long were you guys sets when you guys did that package tour? Did you guys do half hour?
Yeah, we did it like an hour.
Hour?
Yeah, I think
Full
it was.
Hour? Really?
I really, now you
That's
mention
incredible.
it. Now you mention it.
It must have been shorter than that.
It had to have been shorter because we were doing a lot of high schools.
Yeah,
too.
That's why I wondered if you went from high school to do that, and then your repertoire had to grow a few more songs, from 2 songs.
We were doing real small venues, more like high school gyms and stuff like that. And I really, because if you think about it, the kids can't stay out late.
Yeah.
Like now, concerts go on to 1 or 2 o'clock. It didn't back then. They were over by 12. If I remember right.
Wouldn't that be cool to get a tape or some audio or some video from that tour?
I know.
Oh, my gosh. There has to be something out there.
Well, probably not video.
No, but you never know, man.
Yeah.
There's always crazier stories. Like, oh,
It's too early for the video. That's why there's there's so few things of Michigan bands from that era. Just don't.
Yeah.
Unless they were on a television show, and I don't know if do you think they're ever going to release that stuff from Teen Town and Swingin' Time, Fred? They.
Well, see bits
they
and
had all
pieces
those
sometimes
bands on there. Including Question Mark, the Mysterians.
Yeah, EJ and the Echoes were on there too.
Wow.
Yeah, jeez.
I just did an interview. His name was Bill. He was doing it for PBS in Detroit, and it was like a local thing. And they were doing a documentary of what was his name for Swingin' Time?
Oh, Robin Seymour.
Robin Seymour. And a good friend of mine, he helped me write the book. He made sure that everything was on there, was written, correctly. And he told me that his name was Bill. I can't remember his last name, but he wanted to talk to me about Robin, And so I called him up and we talked, and I told him Robin was just a great person, just a real nice guy. And I remember when we did the show, there was that one singer. Wayne Cochran.
Oh,
you remember Wayne Cochran?
Oh yeah,
he was on the show and he blew me away.
the white James Brown.
James Brown. And Bill, the guy I was doing the interview with, he was so into wanting to know about Wayne Cochran, and so I told him, I said, man, I was just blown away. The guy, he was like James Brown, just dancing, and then he had his pompadour haircut.
all platinum blonde.
Yeah, it was blonde, and it looked like he ratted it and then combed it back over the top of it, and he just stuck out like, but he was amazing. That guy, and then his band, he had like a James Brown band, and
the CC Riders.
The CC Riders, and they had these outfits where they all dressed alike, and they did choreography, that, and then Wayne, he would get out on the front, and then he would just get out on the dance floor, and he was dancing all over the place, and he was amazing. I'm thinking, why have I ever heard of this guy?
right.
He was on television quite a bit, in that mid-'60s. I think the Lloyd Thaxton show, you remember that?
I remember that, yeah.
And what was the show that came out of Cleveland?
Upbeat.
There you go. Yeah, he was on those shows.
Yeah.
Do you know that Wayne Cochran did the original version of Last Date? Oh,
really?
Wait a minute. Is it Last Date? Am I thinking...
Last Date, isn't that an instrumental? That's
no, it's not Last Date. It was the
Last Kiss? No.
Last Kiss.
The one that Pearl Jam redid?
Pearl Jam, and then who had the big hit?
Frank J. Reynolds? Wasn't it?
Was it Frank J. Reynolds?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then,
but Wayne Cochran did the original version of it.
Really? Wow.
No kidding.
Like 62 or something.
Just think
like
he
that.
could have had a hit.
Well, that guy Frank J. Reynolds. When I had my store in Bay City, a guy came in, told me he was him. And I said, well, okay, blah, blah, blah. Because then I went home and I looked, because I had the album, and there's no picture of him on the album. So I never knew.
Frank Luga told me that story,
I don't think it was.
I don't think it was either. I think he was from Texas.
He was at the Green Hut telling everybody.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't think it was.
He had his story straight, though, or at least the questions I asked him.
Yeah.
He must have been on the company out here that signed.
Delta Promotions.
Yeah, we were hooked up with Delta Promotions. So was Mark Farner, and then after I read the story about them,
Holy crap! Yeah, that's so funny that you guys both experienced at the Green Hut or the record store and all that same time period. Now, so you were on the tour bus with the dude you were just talking about singing no,
Wayne Cochran.
No,
Wayne Cochran.
we did Upbeat with him.
Oh, just Upbeat.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know if that was the guy you
not
toured with.
Upbeat. Swingin'
Robin
Time.
Seymour?
Yeah, Swingin' Time. Yeah.
No, that's cool.
Yeah, and he was just a great entertainer, and I was hoping to see him or go on tour with him or something.
Right.
He's just really enjoyable to watch, like James Brown, That was a good time.
I bet.
I remember doing Upbeat too. We did it with that was the first time I seen somebody with real long hair.
Oh, yeah? Yeah.
Yeah, it was that song. That's they go the guitar with and it just went on, and I always liked the guitar lead. I can't think of the name of the band, but they had hair down to their waist.
Really?
And the Beatles, we were used to the Beatles, the Rolling Stones shoulder. But this is the first time, and everybody in the band had long hair, man. It was like, wow, that is cool looking.
Wow.
That was a cool time doing a beat.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
So, Fred, you went to a lot of the teen clubs. Did you catch these guys? At Band Canyon or back in the day, question mark and Mysterians?
Oh yeah, but one time at Daniel's Den at Houghton Lake, they had a lot of bands. I can't remember if it was the grand opening, and you guys were the headliners downstairs. I think it was like 67, somewhere in there. And we were the original low-class, half-ass jug and blues band. We were playing upstairs at the same time you guys were playing. So we started before you, and we were into our first or second song, and you guys started playing. Everybody ran downstairs. We had nobody.
I'm sorry.
So we ended up coming down there.
There's a fight going to break out here.
I apologize.
No, you guys, it was great, man.
No, I remember playing there because there was a band called Up, and these guys were tall too. These guys.
Well, I got to meet Frank Bach, and we became good friends. He was the lead singer in the Up.
Really?
And
he was tall, wasn't he?
No, none of those guys were. Because I saw them at the Delta Pop Festival, and I thought they were tall. And then when I met Frank, he's my height.
Okay.
They just had long legs or something. I don't remember.
I remember watching them, and I'm thinking, these guys are tall. I catch the name now.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, I saw you, I think was your very first gig when you were hired by the Delta College fraternity.
You know who that was?
Fred Herder.
Fred Herder.
Yeah, from Herder Music.
I never knew that,
What fraternity? Because I was in a fraternity at Delta. I don't think it was our fraternity.
No, it was. It was.
Well, who can remember?
I don't remember, but it was definitely a fraternity.
Yeah, it was a fraternity because I remember Fred kept driving back and forth. I lived in Auburn, outside of Auburn, between Auburn and Bay City on North Union Road, and we had a farm out there. And we practiced out of the garage, so we were definitely a garage band,
The real thing. Yeah.
And this guy kept driving back and forth, and the same car, and then he finally stopped and he stood there, and then he pulled in. So I went and talked to him, and he goes, "Who's the leader of the band?" I said, "Well, this is my parents' home, so I guess I am, And he goes, "I'd like to see about hiring you guys. You guys are really good. I like the music you're doing. You're doing top 40 stuff, you're doing current stuff. And would you be interested?" And I go, "Yeah, And so he booked us, and I remember playing. Where did we play again?
It was a little hall.
Was it in Auburn?
Or Fisherville. One of those little, very tiny halls. There were two rooms. There was like a bar room, and then there was a room that had a little stage and a floor where you could dance. So the big attraction for myself and my buddies was the beer.
Uh-huh.
We were all under 21, and I paid $2 or something like that. And you could drink draft beer, and of course there was a band, and so I drifted in, to see what the band was all about, and it was you guys out there. And what knocked me out is that you had your families there.
Yeah,
like your mothers and fathers and grandparents and their little kids. And so you got all the college kids in the other room drinking beer, and
you know how old I was? I was about 13 years old.
Wow. But I was really impressed with you guys because you were doing some like album cuts from the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, we did.
And I was, geez, these guys are really good. And then I didn't even realize who you were, because this would have been at least a year before 96 Tears.
Right. It wasn't even question mark Mysterians. It was the Mysterians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
First gig.
Yeah, that wasn't our first gig, but I think it was our second gig.
Really?
And our first gig, we did it without question mark, and everybody kept saying, "Who sings?"
Yeah. This would have been the first gig where
with
you were
question mark.
Yeah, you were really question mark and the Mysterians.
Yeah, I remember playing it, and then we've been playing for Fred. He has this camp up north, and for kids, they're learning to play music, and he hires us every other year or something like that, and we play our smooth jazz band. And he told me that story, and he goes, "You don't remember me, do you?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I know you own it's Guitar Center, And he goes, "No, before that, before you ever came to the store." And I'm thinking, "No, I don't remember you, Fred."
Well, Fred told me that he paid you guys $10.
Well, he did, It was more about playing.
Oh,
out,
sure, of course.
Like the first gig we did, Scott, was we played for a Greek. That Greek festival they have in Saginaw.
Yeah,
it was kind of like that, but it was small. I'm thinking maybe it grew into a large thing.
Oh,
now,
yeah, it was probably one of the very early ones. Yeah,
and we
McCarty.
Yeah. And we played for a Greek church, and it was a festival, and we all we could play was instrumentals. And I loved it. I didn't want to sing. I didn't want no singing in the band.
Yeah, it took you full circle nowadays, coming back around to that whole thing.
You're right.
Yep.
And I always loved instrumentals, And so we got that gig, and then we did it, and everybody kept saying, "Well, who sings in a band?" I go, "Oh shoot, here we go," And then we got paid $15, and so it was only three of us, so we got $5 a piece. So we went to Tony's and got steak sandwiches.
Oh yeah!
And I felt like an adult.
Yeah, but man, that first paying gig.
There you go, living large.
I paid for my own food.
Now, how did the Greek Festival Church find some Mexican guys jamming? I mean, that's just in Bay City, in Polishville.
No,
you would have been in Saginaw.
It was in Saginaw.
Right? Okay.
And I think it was through the family that somebody knew somebody.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That just shows how cool and open things were at that time period.
Yeah.
How things were opening up completely.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good. They were great people. I mean, I got the chance to watch them dance. The Greeks dance. How they dance.
That's a treat when you go to those things.
Yeah,
that's something different completely.
It was. That was some great times.
And that wraps it up with our first part of the Bobby Balderrama story. Here with 96 Tears, question mark of the Mysterians, the history behind the music, as well as Art Scheill's great studio here in Bay City in the mid-'60s. Please join us again in 2 weeks for part 2 of Bobby Balderrama's podcast with us here at the Michigan Music History Podcast. And he will go on to the second half of his career, which leads us up to his smooth jazz that he does now with other question mark of the Mysterians, tidbits, and trivia. We want to thank you all for listening and tuning in, and come back next time. See you in a few weeks.
Thank you for tuning in. Additionally, Dr. J can be reached at MichiganRock'n'RollLegends.com. Sir Fred can be hit up at FredRife.com. And Scott through ScottBakerMusic.com. You can also search Michigan Music History Podcast on Facebook and YouTube. You've been listening to the MMHP in the 989. From all of us at the podcast, we want to thank you for tuning in.